At school he'd been taught to box, and he loved it. He was the best. For his weight and inches, Darcy was the greatest boxer who ever drew on a glove. The way he was treated was a shame. In Sydney, Les's body lay in state for 2 days as hundreds of thousands filed past his coffin. His funeral in his hometown of Maitland was one of the largest ever seen in Australia, with special trains running from Sydney, Newcastle and Brisbane. Here was a great fighter, a superb athlete with a sense of fair play, who respected his opponents and respected the game. Les Darcy epitomised what we love about sport. When just 14 years of age, he fought the much older George Governor Balsa, a bush jockey and experienced boxer, in a railway siding. The many boxing troops that toured country towns gave young hopefuls a chance to measure their ability. When young Les proved too good for experienced tent fighters, he knew he was born to box. Darcy was placed under the management of Dave Smith. The former Australian heavyweight champion was a fine teacher and a gentleman of the ring. The purses grew. For beating local champion Billy McNabb, he earned £100. His pay at the forge was £1 per week. By the time Les was 18, he was the best-known fighter outside Sydney. Special trains from the Newcastle Maitland district brought hundreds of Darcy supporters, and these, with their effervescent enthusiasm, were in evidence in all parts. The Great War broke out in Europe. As Australian troops prepared for overseas duty, the 19-year-old Darcy had a series of contests. He beat local, European and American fighters. Les was far too well known to pretend he was 21. Darcy's boxing career was over until the war was over. America beckoned more strongly than ever. Having been refused a passport, he contacted Sullivan, who set about organising their departure. One of America's biggest boxing promoters, Tex Rickard, had located them in Chile and fed information of their imminent arrival to an excited press. Les was amazed at the reception and then held the first of many press conferences. Governor Whitman announced that Les had been barred from boxing in New York. He was perturbed at the way Les had left Australia. In fact, Whitman had always wanted boxing barred. He knew those running the game in New York were corrupt.
When Les Darcy went to America, it was sort of like stepping into a snake pit, I think. He fell into the hands of the worst fraud merchants and shysters, and they ripped him off shamelessly.
Other state governors and boxing commissions followed Whitman's example by barring Darcy. Les, in desperation, took the oath of allegiance to become an American citizen. Darcy would enlist in the American Army Reserve and apply for 2 months' leave, during which he would have 4 or 5 fights before going to the front. After 4 frustrating months, Les at last was allowed to box. It wasn't to be.
Every historical survey ever done had Les Darcy in its top 10, from Nat Fleischer in 1959 to the revised ring ratings in 1967, to Herb Goldman, who just did one for the International Boxing Digest. Every historian rates him as one of the greatest fighters who ever lived, and certainly one of the greatest middleweights of all time.